Hello there and welcome to today's video, which is all about my experience of therapy as a late diagnosed autistic person. As a heads up, I'm going to try and keep this video as candid as possible or as non-edited as possible because I seem to have spent so much time editing recently. So I'm sure you'll hear some rain and some traffic noise, so apologies for that, but I will try to do my best to minimise that noise in backgrounds. And before we get started, I do need to clarify that I am in no way anti-therapy, even though I've had some less than ideal experiences. We know that therapy can be really helpful for autistic people. It's really the case of finding the right therapist and somebody who knows about autism and the autistic experience. And I'm talking about my experiences from, I don't know, 20 or 30 years ago. So this was at a time when very few people knew about autism, but I thought it might make for an interesting video nonetheless. So let's get started. So my first experience of therapy, or at least the first experience that I can remember anyway, I've got a dreadful long-term memory, as I've mentioned quite a few times now, but I think this was probably in my mid to late 20s, and I was referred to this therapist through the NHS. So I think I had 6 sessions with this therapist, but I found it so difficult. Firstly, the therapist that I was seeing was, she was an older lady, but she was really, really posh. And for whatever reason, this was kind of off-putting to me. I think because I couldn't imagine her being able to relate to my own experiences, really. So it meant that there was like a barrier between us from my perspective. It was really difficult to connect with her, so I found that I just wouldn't be truthful with her and I'd kind of make out everything was okay. And I think this really just connects with autistic masking as well, because even though I didn't know that I was autistic at that stage, I was, fairly aware that I was masking around people or hiding the person within. I was just trying to convey this curated version of myself who was, more confident and more kind of with it, and who understood the world around me so much better than the actual me did. So I found this really confusing in therapy because although I was used to masking, I didn't know how to mask in therapy, if this makes sense. I didn't know how to be with this woman because I was just so used to covering everything up that I couldn't find a way to release this in the therapeutic sessions with her. I still felt that there was a barrier through autistic masking, and I didn't know any other way. I just didn't know how to be myself with her. And also, because of this kind of class divide between us, I felt like I was being judged by this therapist, and whether or I was or not is a different story, but that's how I felt. So I couldn't be open with her at all. So I would say that everything was kind of okay during these sessions when really things weren't okay. So through this masking, I would show up almost as a different person. And because of that, it just felt utterly pointless going to these sessions because I wasn't talking about myself or, my own experiences that I perhaps found troubling in some way. I would talk at just a very kind of surface level. And also, I can't remember which therapeutic discipline this therapist was from or applied, but she barely spoke in these sessions, and I would find this anxiety inducing because through my autistic mask, I just hate these kind of silences with other people, and I feel it's incumbent on me to fill these spaces just with, nonsense if needs be, or small talk, really. So I would find them quite stressful, and as a result, I would dread these sessions and find them utterly exhausting. I felt like I would collapse almost at the ends of these sessions. I'd need to go to bed for a few hours because I felt so tired. So in the end, it just felt pointless, as I've said. I would dread the session, so I just couldn't wait for them to end. And I was relieved when the 6 sessions came to an end, because I did not find them useful at all. The second therapist I saw was an older gent, and he did CBT therapy, which is cognitive behavioural therapy. So it's kind of more problem solution based therapy. It's really about trying to identify and challenge negative thoughts, so like intrusive thoughts that we as autistic people often have. So I was initially quite drawn to this type of therapy, but again, I found it really difficult. And I have to say, I don't remember these therapy sessions as much as the first therapy sessions I had. But again, I was offered 6 sessions through our NHS, but I remember there just wasn't very much of a connection between me and this therapist. So again, I wasn't being myself. I was just being a version of myself that I thought would be kind of, I don't know, appropriate within the scenario. So I do remember holding quite a lot back, as I did with the first sessions. So again, I would dread these sessions because they didn't offer anything of real value, actually. And I remember going for my last session with this chap, and his first words to me were, "Why are you here? I thought we'd kind of covered everything in the previous sessions." And we had not made any arrangement to end these sessions. So I was utterly confused by this. I was like, I've got 6 sessions with you. I've turned up for the 6th. So why are you saying this to me? It just felt really inappropriate. So I think I did complete the 6th session with him, but it just felt utterly bizarre. I felt like I wasn't wanted in that session, like he didn't want me there. So yeah, I was just relieved when it came to an end, because again, I just didn't find it helpful. And I felt more disappointed this time around, because I've always had this thing where I just want people to tell me what to do, because I found life so difficult at times, as many autistic people do, and I'm sure you can relate to this. And because of this, I just wanted helpful advice and appropriate advice to help me navigate life. But of course, this just wasn't to be. So again, this was an utter waste of time for me. And my third therapist was actually a hypnotherapist, and I had, I think, around 10 sessions a couple of years later to the CBT therapist. And this chap was recommended to me by a friend, and he was maybe around 5 or 10 years older than me. And I found hypnotherapy quite interesting, a concept, certainly in the first few sessions. I liked the fact that I didn't have to make any eye contact, because in hypnotherapy it's all about relaxation, really. So you lie back in a chair. So I did quite like that about hypnotherapy, but I would say there's a feeling of like added vulnerability, because you're not aware of what's going on within your current surroundings, because your eyes are closed. And as somebody who struggles with a bit of PTSD, I like to know what's going on around me. But after a few sessions, I kind of got used to it, and yeah, at first it seemed to be more helpful than the other kinds of therapy that I had, but didn't take long before I'd start dreading sessions again. So maybe after about, I don't know, 5 or 6 sessions, I started getting some kind of weird vibes from this guy. Nothing bad or anything like that. I just felt like, I don't know, I started to feel really uncomfortable. And the longer the sessions went on, the more he wanted to sort of guide me into kind of memories that felt sort of far more uncomfortable, really. So it all felt way too soon, and I didn't want to do any of that really. So I would do my best just to talk about other memories that felt more comfortable to talk about. So I felt like it was all too much too soon, and I remember saying to him at the end of one session that I was thinking about ending these sessions soon. Firstly, because they were really expensive. This was private therapy I was paying for, and I felt at that stage that I wasn't really getting much out of them, and he was so reluctant for me to think about ending these sessions, which kind of overshadows maybe anything that I got kind of positively out of these sessions. The one thing that I did like about hypnotherapy, however, was that you're kind of told what to do in these sessions. You're kind of guided into a state of relaxation. Although I never did fully relax, I have to say, but I, did my best as an autistic person. But yeah, it was yeah, not useful for me at all in the end. And I remember feeling a massive sigh of relief when this all came to an end. And yeah, it just became super awkward in the end with him, and particularly on the last session, he just really didn't want me to end these sessions. So yeah, that wasn't great. Now, the fourth time I had any kind of, I don't know, therapeutic help almost, and I don't even know if that's the appropriate words in this instance, but in my 20s, I had a breakdown essentially. It was a really bad time for me, and I was given the number of a mental health nurse, and I was really agoraphobic at this point, and I didn't really see anybody for around 18 months, but I found it actually really helpful to connect with this woman. I spoke to her every few nights, I think, and I think it only went on for about 2 or 3 months. It was almost like tentative attempts at kind of talking with other people, but it was almost kind of comforting to know that there was somebody who knew about me and who knew that I was going through a difficult time, and I found it so helpful to connect with her. And there was no therapy there with this lady. It was really just about talking about how I was feeling at a human level. There was no, as I say, there was no therapeutic elements to this conversation really. It was just, checking in and saying how I was doing, or how I wasn't really doing very well that day. So yeah, I found this really useful, and I'm so pleased that I've had this memory actually, because I think it does show that human connection is so important at times, isn't it? And yeah, I really wish I could thank this woman now, but this was years and years ago. But yeah, it was nice to be able to have that nice memory pop up. So, would I have therapy now? Well, I've been given this some thoughts this week, and it's really difficult to get any help with regard to mental health or mental health conditions here in the UK, because well, it's, the NHS is overstretched and the waiting lists are huge, essentially. So it really is about going private here in the UK, and I'm not in a position to be able to afford that at the moment. But also, I don't know if I would have therapy, certainly at the moment, because I found that since my autism diagnosis last year, that the more I research autism and autistic traits and behaviours, it's really explaining so much for me. It's like a whole voyage of discovery, and it really is explaining just so much about me and my life that I'm kind of more invested in that at the moment. There is just so much there, and so much still there that I want to learn about, that I don't actually feel any need for therapy at the moment. And also, I do need to say that I have dreadful PDA when it comes to any appointments. And I know even going to the doctors about, some physical health symptom is always such a bind to me and my day, that I would just, I don't know, see it as, I don't want to say an annoyance, because I don't mean an annoyance, but it almost feels like, I don't know, an appointment really impacts on a whole day for me. So I feel like I don't have, I don't know, almost like the time or inclination for therapy right now. It's not to say that it's something that I wouldn't consider in the future, because I don't know if I may feel the need for therapy at some point. I do need to say, however, that I would have found some kind of mental health or emotional support really useful at the time of my autism diagnosis, which was early last year, because, well, it's just a huge piece of information to be given about yourself, isn't it? And it takes so much time and effort to fully absorb this. And, I'm still going through this processing of the fact that I am an autistic person. So, certainly in the early months, I could have done with some help. And, I know that I'm not on my own with this. We know that there's a real lack of support out there for autistic people. I think also acts of creativity are really helpful for me in terms of mental health, and I find the very act of being creative really quite meditative. So, I'm fully able to get lost in artwork and creativity, which I feel like is just such a plus in my life. It's almost like a blessing. It's yeah, something I'm really grateful for, and yeah, it's undoubtedly helped in terms of my own mental health, really. I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you for watching. Give it a like if you got this far, and I'll see you again soon.